Well, welcome to the 700 Club. President Trump's campaign focused mainly on domestic issues, like the economy and illegal immigration. But in his first few months in the White House, he's facing serious international problems, from Syria to North Korea.
So now the president's reaching out to leaders around the world to help prevent these crises from turning into wars. Dale Hurd has the story.
The Kremlin says Russian President Vladimir Putin and President Trump agreed during a phone call to step up U.S.-Russian diplomatic efforts on Syria. It could signal a thaw after some, including the president, have said relations between Moscow and Washington are at an all-time low. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in Saudi Arabia.
Well, it was a very constructive call that the two presidents had. Very, very fulsome call, a lot of detailed exchanges, so we'll see where we go from here.
The White House said the two leaders discussed setting up safe zones in Syria. The U.S. is also working with China on a stronger UN Security Council response to North Korea, including sanctions, after Pyongyang's repeated ballistic missile launches. The most recent missile test on Friday failed. And Congress has passed legislation that would intensify financial pressure on the North. Military pressure is also being brought to bear. U.S. Air Force B-1 bombers have conducted what are called presence missions near the Korean peninsula twice in the past 2 weeks, in a move designed to show North Korean leader Kim Jong-un what he's up against. A THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Missile System, is now operational in South Korea. That angers China, which sees it as a threat to its security, and Beijing has demanded its removal. It's even triggered protest by some South Koreans, the people it was sent to defend. The Trump administration has been greeted by so many foreign policy crises in its first 100 days. One political cartoon shows Barack Obama tossing President Trump a foreign policy hand grenade. In addition to North Korea and Syria, there's also Iran's nuclear program and ISIS, and none of them look to be resolved anytime soon. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, President Trump is meeting with another foreign leader today, the head of the Palestinian Authority, Mahmoud Abbas. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington. John?
Thanks, Gordon. The president will press Abbas on a key issue: to stop sending payments to the families of Palestinians who are in prison for attacks against Israelis. Republican senators and others in Congress argue that the U.S. cannot treat the Palestinians as a peace partner as long as they reward terrorists. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is also urging Palestinians to stop funding terrorists that kill Israelis. But Abbas is unlikely to stop the payments. Trump and Abbas will also discuss other issues involving peace between the Palestinians and Israelis. Well, President Trump promised to move the U.S. Embassy in Israel on the campaign trail last year. Now Vice President Pence says the commander-in-chief is looking into that idea.
The President of the United States, as we speak, is giving serious consideration to moving the American Embassy in Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
But moving the embassy to Jerusalem has serious political implications. Palestinians want East Jerusalem as a future capital of their own state. Israel captured East Jerusalem in 1967 during the Six-Day War. Well, UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, passed a resolution Tuesday that disavows Israel's sovereignty over Jerusalem. Prime Minister Netanyahu called the move absurd and pointed out that fewer countries supported the motion this time than have gone along with similar moves in the past. Netanyahu worked with several countries to oppose the resolution. The United States was one of the nations voting against it. The vote was taken on Israel's celebration of its 69th Independence Day. Now, last week, all 100 U.S. senators signed a letter to the United Nations Secretary General urging him, Gordon, to improve the UN's treatment of Israel.
Well, I'm not expecting the UN to change its posture towards Israel. Just over the past 2 years, there have been 20 resolutions condemning Israel, only 3 condemning other nations. And why is Israel such a target? Well, you need to know the history. You also need to know the Bible. The Bible predicts that all nations will gather against Jerusalem, and we're seeing the beginnings of that. The Bible also predicted that one day Jerusalem would no longer be trodden under the foot of the Gentile. And that was fulfilled. These are the words of Jesus. That was fulfilled in 1967. You need to know this history. You need to know how the state of Israel came into being, the modern state, how Jerusalem became once again the unified capital of Israel. And when you have that information, when you look at today's headlines, you'll be able to understand why. Why is this happening? Why is it happening in face of the Bible? Why is it happening in face of what Israel did in 1967? And so to allow you to get this information, we've got a wonderful movie for you. It's called In Our Hands, The Battle for Jerusalem. It'll be available in theaters one day only on May 23. And that's the day on the Jewish calendar when we celebrate the reunification of Jerusalem. So when you see these headlines, what UNESCO is doing, what the Palestinian Authority is doing, what the UN is doing, you'll know the real history of what happened in 1967. So if you want more information, go to the website, inourhands1967.com. There's a place where you can type in your zip code and find a theater near you.